Hi everybody, welcome back to Zesty Thoughts with your host Annábla. Welcome to episode 34. So today's episode is going to be kind of fun. I have wanted to do an episode about this for a while. Like I put this early on in notes about like things I would want to gab about in a pod. So without further ado, this is going to be my sorority episode. I was in a sorority not all 4 years of college. I ended up dropping out. So like that's kind of like to preface what this is going to be about, my experience, the pros, the cons, why I dropped out, and just the vibes, you feel me? I'm just going to talk about it and rant about it because I have a lot of strong opinions regarding it. But yeah, so this is going to be an interesting episode. I am repping my alma mater. I went to CSUN. For those of you that don't know, go Matadors. I got my bachelor's there. I studied music business, and then I also minored in business law. So that's what I studied. I graduated 2019. And I really enjoyed my time at CSUN, like overall. I found a really great community within the music department, and even some of the friends that I made in the sorority, and in Greek life. So I overall had a really fun time in college. I loved every second of it. College is a lot. It can be really stressful. I did work all throughout college as well, like part-time while I was studying. So there were some stressful moments. There were some late nights, some early mornings. I worked at like a coffee shop on campus, while I studied there. And so there were a few semesters where I would open. And so I'd wake up at the crack of dawn and go to campus and work and then have class and stuff. And then there were some semesters where I worked like the happy hour. And that shit was stressful because I worked at the coffee shop in the library and people are trying to fuel up and get their grub on and get their munchies before they go and cram and study in the library. And the library on CSUN's campus is like massive. So it was a very, very busy location for the coffee shop on campus. And it was hectic to say the least. I worked as a supervisor for like 3 years at that shop, and it was a lot to say the least, but that's not what this episode is about. So I'm going to just transition now into how it all came to be and the story of like why I even decided to rush and join in the first place and like all of that. Okay, so backstory: freshman year, I lived in the college like dorms, and at CSUN is kind of cool. They have some dorms that are specified for specific majors. So they actually had a music kind of categorized dorm, and in that building, it's nice because it's not like the single room like classic dorm that's just like 2 beds and closets where you all have to like share bathrooms, like go to like community bathrooms. It is like an apartment building, so it's literally like 2-bedroom apartments, 2-bed, 1-bath apartments with a kitchen, and a living room. So it was very different than like the traditional like tiny dorm room college experience, but it was really nice. Like I'm very grateful that that was even a thing that existed. So privilege there already with that. And then to top it off, this specific floor, I think in this building, was like kind of geared towards music majors because CSUN has a really large music department. And so in that floor, there was, I think a few practice rooms, and there might've been others in that building, I forget, but I lived on that same like bottom floor, like my first 2 years, at CSUN. I lived in housing. And so it was really cool. It was like geared towards that. So I made a lot of friends very quickly, because when you're a freshman, you go like a week early and you like go into housing a week early, and then they do like your RA does like, you know, icebreaker kind of things. There's a bunch of events on campus to get like freshmen excited for the school year and like get you involved and like get you to make friends so that you start off the year strong. So basically, I made a lot of friends my first semester, like right off the bat, because a lot of the people that lived on that floor also were in like classes with me. So I would see them in housing and like in that area, and then I would see them on campus, like by the music building in classes, and we'd study together and stuff like that. So right off the bat, I was very lucky to like make friends and like find my people right away. But like not everyone is that lucky. CSUN especially is like considered a kind of a commuter college. So a lot of people don't live on campus. Most people just commute from other parts of LA, or people that live in the valley that still like live at home with their parents and they just like come and study and then go home. So not everybody is going to have that like same experience at CSUN. It's like dependent on like a whole host of things, like where you live and like what kind of major you're in, I'm sure. And how involved you are and how like social you are, like, you know, how much of an extrovert you are. Like the first like day that I got into housing, I like went and like me and my roommate at the time like went and knocked on people's doors in that floor to like get to know people. So it's like you get what you like put into it. Like if we had not done that, maybe we would not have like connected with as many people. But long story short, like not everybody right off the bat is like lucky enough to be in a position like that where they have like a lot of friends right away and are able to just like find their people, find study buddies and make friends right away in college. And Greek life is like a really great option for that. If that's something that like, I don't know, part of this episode is going to be like giving advice maybe for people that are considering joining Greek life or like maybe are currently in college and are like, you know, I'm interested or like I need to make friends or XYZ, or like they're trying to weigh the pros and cons of like whether Greek life fits their schedule in college and like their lifestyle and their personality and all that. So that's kind of the route that I'm going. But long story short, after first semester, I already had a lot of friends. It was not even on my radar to join Greek life. Like there was no part of me that was seeking that out. And before joining, like I always thought like it was kind of corny. It just like wasn't something that ever spoke to me. I didn't know any like family members or anybody like close to me like that was older that had been in Greek life. So I like had no experiences to pull from, and no one was like, hey, rush this, rush that. Like it's not like I was a legacy or anything. So just wasn't on my radar. Second semester of my freshman year, I was taking a lot of GEs like right early on in my first year or two because I just wanted to get them out of the way. I had to take an anthropology class. Loved the class. The professor was super old and like kind of boring. But I was always intrigued by anthropology. It's a subject that I think is like very interesting, and I love talking about it and discussing it and reading up on like anthropological news. And I just think it's interesting. So, you know, the class was interesting. It was a pretty big lecture hall, at least 100 students. And admittedly, I felt so bad because the professor was really old. And I feel like most of the kids in there were not anthropology majors. Like they were just getting a GE out of the way. They were kind of disrespectful to the professor. Like when I look back on it now, people were rude to him, you know, and it wasn't the most fun class. I don't know. But long story short, I enjoyed the subject matter. I thought it was interesting, but I mean, the professor was a little bit on the boring side, just to put it nicely. So in that class, you know, there's that like camaraderie among students. If you've ever been in like, I mean, obviously you get the same kind of feeling in high school, but in that like setting, it's just like way more people. That kind of mutual feeling among everybody in the class. So like, oh, this is like boring, like, you know, snooze, people are skipping class, people are just like not really taking it seriously, unfortunately. That was definitely the vibe. And I feel like people were just like talking a lot, not really passing notes, but like texting. And like very quickly into that semester, people made like friend groups in that class. And there was just like this unspoken, like, oh my God, we just got to get through this kind of thing. So anyway, that's to set the stage for the vibes in the class. One of those classes, if you've experienced it, you know exactly what I mean. It was kind of like our management class also. Cami and I took a management class senior year, that was just painfully boring. No one gave two shits about it. And Cami and I literally traded off. At one point, we started trading off every other week. Like one of us would go to the class and like take notes and keep track of like assignments and exams and stuff and sign the other person in. Because we literally had to sign in for attendance, which I think is such bullshit in college that was even a thing, that attendance was even a thing. Especially for like GEs that like no one cares about. It's like, if I can just like study and find the materials in the book and like look at a study guide on your Canvas, like why? And it's just like the class would be literally the professor reading off of a PowerPoint, and then the professor would post the PowerPoint online. And so I was like, why are we even here? If we can like read this PowerPoint and feasibly like digest it ourselves, like what are you even bringing? Like, what are you teaching us? Like, it's just like, what's the point of us being here? You're not creating an environment where it's a necessity to be in class. You're not adding anything, or like embellishing on anything from the PowerPoint. You're literally just reading off of it. And so anyway, it was like kind of one of those classes. Basically, in that class, probably like a few weeks in, I just remember there was this one girl in the class that sat like in a row behind me or like a few rows behind me. And she was always like gabbing and talking and making like funny comments, and like she was just giving class clown, you feel me? And she was really pretty and she was cool. And I don't even know how we came to like talk in the class or what led to that. There was just one class where the girl and I started like talking and gabbing. And then after class, we were chatting, we would start to kind of hang out a little bit. And after a few like classes, like chatting and, we became friends, and she's like, "Oh girl, like, are you in a sorority or anything?" And I was like, "No, just like, oh my gosh, I'm in one, like you should rush it." And it was spring semester. It wasn't fall. So she was like, "Oh, spring recruitment is like way more chill. We're just going to do like little mixers, and girls that are interested in joining just can come hang, meet some other sisters and chat it up. And, after the night goes on, if we feel like you're a good fit, then we'll like offer you a bid, and then you can go through the whole process." Had no clue what that meant. I had no frame of reference for what recruitment or that like process before being initiated was. Zero clue. So I was like, "Oh, okay, that sounds fun." She's like, "Yeah, we're going to be at Menchie's," which is like a frozen yogurt place in LA. She's like, "We're going to be at Menchie's this night. Just come hang out. Like, we'll get frozen yogurt. Like, it's on us, you can just come and chill with me and talk to some other sisters and see if you like vibe with anybody, and we'll see how the night goes, So I'm like, "Oh, okay, like this could be interesting. Why not?" So I go and I show up, and like you have to like kind of register. So you have to put like your student ID, your name, all that kind of info, just so they know like who is interested. And there's like a lot of like logistical things that go into like Greek life. I don't know if every university is like this, but specifically at CSUN, like grades are a big thing. Like if you're on academic probation, or if there are like enough girls or boys in the house that are like not doing well, it looks bad on the whole house. And if grades are bad enough, and if there are enough like infractions or something against the house, then the house can be put on probation and can't recruit more members like the following semester. It's like kind of like a form of punishment, like, "Hey, we know y'all are partying, having fun and all that, but like you also are here to study and learn. So you gotta keep your grades up, or you can't recruit more people." So long story short, you give your information. And when I show up, I'm like talking with girls, I get frozen yogurt, and I'm like vibing. I meet a few sisters, and we're just like talking about ourselves, getting to know each other, and the chapter like mom, basically like the chapter advisor, she's like an alum of the same sorority that has like volunteered to come and like work with the house and kind of advise, be the like adult. I mean, we're all adults, we're above 18, but like the adult alum advisor to make sure things are going how they're supposed to go, to keep the girls in check, and facilitate all of the administrative stuff for the chapter. She was there sitting at a table, she's like checking girls in and all that. And when I walk up, she's like, "Oh, hey, what's your name? Da, da, da." I give her my name, and she's like, "Oh, hey, 4.0." And I was like, what? This woman, I mean, bless her. She was like really sweet overall. Like I had a mostly great experience with her. But like she literally like referred to me as 4.0. I was offered a bid that night. I ended up like going through the whole process and then getting initiated and joining. But like until she learned my name, she literally called me 4.0. And as like a background, I didn't know at the time, once I had joined the chapter, I had realized that like grades were not so good overall. A lot of women in that chapter were kind of struggling grade-wise. So having someone, after my freshman year, like first semester, I had all A's. Like it was very easy all my classes my first semester. So I had all A's and a 4.0 GPA after first semester freshman year. So that looked very appealing. Like, oh, this is someone that has good grades, and that overall, if she joins the chapter, will help to bring up the average like GPA of the chapter. And that's good, because if our GPA is increased and all this kind of stuff, we'll be in good standing, and we will be able to recruit and do all the things we're supposed to do. You feel me? So yeah, but that was very interesting. She literally called me 4.0, and like even after the fact, until she like learned my name, because there's a lot of girls that join, like takes her a minute to learn everybody's name, literally called me 4.0 until she learned my name. So I was like, okay, period. But that is important to remember because of another part of this story that I'm going to get into. So don't forget that. She called me 4.0 until she learned my name, okay? Keep a mental note of that aspect. So basically, fast forward, I'm offered a bid. I start going to a bunch of meetings with all the other girls that are offered bids. Basically, you're not officially part of the sorority yet. You're in like this like probationary period where there's like a bunch of education. You learn about the history of the sorority, their values, like all these kinds of things. And then you are like tested on all of this material. Like you have to know it. It's all these like basically like sorority like secrets that you're expected to know and be able to like just have common knowledge about before you join the sisterhood. And you're tested on all this stuff. And then if you pass the exams and you complete like that kind of probationary period, you go to events, you do a bunch of stuff, then you are formally initiated into the sisterhood. You feel me? So that process was very interesting. Not something that I expected to be so like formal and like official. Like I thought it was way more chill. I thought there was gonna be like a bunch of hazing and all this kind of stuff. I did not realize that it was gonna be like exams, like you're taking tests to like learn things. So that was kind of an interesting point of view. So that's something to take into consideration, that like to even have that like access to being part of the sisterhood, you do have to learn all this kind of stuff. And it's more than just like a social club. You feel me? It's more than just like partying, hanging out, doing events and things like that. You feel me? So yeah, that was an interesting like experience for me, because I didn't know what to expect, obviously. And to preface this, when we had our like ceremony weekend, when all the girls that were new that semester were officially getting initiated, at that point I had not been hazed at all. I didn't really think that I was gonna be hazed, because our chapter advisor was very like adamant on like no hazing, all this kind of stuff. And a year or two prior, I think at CSUN, like one of the fraternities had hazed a group of boys that were joining, I think, in a fall recruitment, which is like, I'll talk about that later in the video. It's way more intense than spring recruitment. Spring recruitment is like way more casual. It's kind of just for girls that like missed the opportunity to like rush in fall, that like other sisters already know that they like want to join, kind of thing. But basically, a year or two prior, one of the fraternities on campus had hazed a group of guys, like made them hike or something. Basically, they were forced into like physical activity, and it was kind of like one of those survival type of things. And one of the boys passed away. So there was a very like strict, obviously after that happening, it was like so fucked up and sad. After that happening on CSUN's campus, there was a very, very, very strict like no hazing like policy. It was like marketed everywhere, especially during recruitment season. It was like there's like zero tolerance for hazing. And if hazing is like rumored, or if there's anything that's like like it will be formally investigated, and like basically like your chapter risks like completely being like banned from the university and being able to even run a chapter. Like your sorority will not be able to have a chapter at this university anymore if you're caught doing it. Or you'll be, you know, if it's like anything like a rumor or whatever, you'll be like banned from recruiting for like a year or something. Like, I didn't think I was gonna be hazed because of that whole situation. Like, and all the girls and like the chapter advisor and like a lot of people were talking about that, just like about how sad it was. And like, yeah, like that's why we're really against hazing. Like we won't do it, da 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 da. But then like after our initiations, and we had like ceremony and all this kind of stuff, to like officially become members, there was like kind of a hazing done, but it was like nothing. It was very, very like, it was literally like we had to like chug out of like this like chalice, but it wasn't even alcohol. It was like grape juice or something. So I was like, like, I think they were trying to allude to the fact, but it wasn't even anything serious. So it is what it is. So technically I didn't get hazed. I don't like consider that hazing because it was like nothing. I mean, I had some like sisters of mine that were like, you know, we're at parties and they're trying to get me to do things, and did some crazy shit at parties that like maybe I would not have just like automatically done myself, that I was kind of egged on to do. But it was like stuff that I was like consenting to. It was nothing like crazy. Like it was just fun, you know? But yeah, long story short, the one other thing that I thought that was like super official and like there's a lot of rules. That's one thing, like going into this, if you think this is going to be like chill and fun and laid back and just like funsies, it's like not. There's so many like strict rules. You obviously, I mean, goes without saying, you have to pay to be in a sorority. You have to pay like chapter dues every semester. And then you have to like go to a certain amount of events. You have to 24 hours, I think, before and after completing a ceremony with like all the sisters in the chapter, you're not allowed to drink. It's like dry time, and it's always on a fucking Monday. So like that means like all weekend you can't drink. Like it's like bullshit, you know? So most of the sisters like didn't follow that rule. But that was like kind of like a rule that like then if a sister got caught doing that, like if people posted pictures or something, if there was something in social media that could prove that a sister was like out drinking or something 24 hours before, she would like be on probation or something. There were like so many weird rules like that like going into this, I was like, wait, what? Why is this so intense? Like this is supposed to be like fun and like, but I think it's just like to have the sorority, like the organization that is the sorority, like to have their back publicly, because obviously there's a lot of historical stuff with sororities and fraternities, like really sus and bad stuff happening. Like, for example, the hazing incident at CSUN. And like when you join a sorority, your chapter at your university is like obviously whatever the name is, like Alpha Phi, like AOPI, whatever. I was at AOPI. Nationally, that company, like it's like an organization, and there's like a headquarters. I think our headquarters is in like Nashville or something. And it's like a national organization. So like you're representing that, and you're representing like the history behind that and all the other women that were part of it and blah, blah, blah. So like a large part that like I wasn't really expecting going into this was like that responsibility being placed on you, that like, hey, you have to be like a good representative, and like you can't get messy drunk and you can't do all these things because you're representing like the sisterhood and the organization like nationally. Like it's like you have to take it seriously. Like I think a lot of girls are like, wait, what? Like we don't give a fuck. Like we just want to like party and have fun and make friends and like have social events and stuff like that, which like a lot of it was. But that was something that like going into it, I was not expecting at all. But it was whatever. It's not like it was like a hassle to like comply with all those things. It was just like, oh, this is more serious. Okay, so fast forward, I joined spring semester. Spring is like fun because you're new, you're doing a lot. There's a lot of like mixers. You have mixers with fraternities, and you have like events and stuff that you do. You have like shows you put on, like for example, AOPI at the time had like a Mr. CSUN shows, like a pageant for fraternity, like men to do like basically a beauty pageant, and you would vote for Mr. CSUN, and like a fraternity member would win and be crowned Mr. CSUN. So like we had fun events like that, mixers, sport games, and like random like intramural like sports like on campus. And like I was not into sports, so like a lot of the sisters like played in those games, but like I never did, because like I like dance and I swim, but like that wasn't like an option. I mean, there were some sisters in our actual chapter that were part of like the dance team on campus, but I was like so busy doing music stuff, and at the time like gigging a lot and like doing a lot of stuff, recording, that I just didn't have time for that. And that takes me to kind of like the reasoning behind why I left. I mean, there were a lot of reasons. Basically, I was a member that spring semester. Fall came around, and it was just like, okay, now shit's about to get serious because fall recruitment. Okay. And I don't think y'all realize, I mean, obviously, if you have if any of like the Southern University sorority like recruitments are on your radar, all of you've seen any content online about women like prepping to rush sororities in the South, I mean, it's nowhere near that. That is like borderline like psychopathic, like really intense shit. It was not like that at all, but it was like a very interesting change in energy and change in pace, and just like, okay, we're going to recruit. And then there were all these extra meetings and all this like planning, like the amount of work that goes into planning fall recruitment. Cause it's basically like an entire weekend where like girls on campus come and they go to mixers back to like all day long, like on a Saturday, for example, they go to this sorority, then the next 30 minutes, they go to this sorority, and they like hop from sorority to sorority on campus and chat, basically to try to find the one that's right for them. So from the inside perspective, it's like, how are we going to show off our best self? We have to be professional. We have to look good. We have to like talk about things that interest, the women that we're like talking to. How do you have a like formal conversation with someone to like almost in a manipulative way to like convince them that like this is the right fit, and that like we're the same vibe as you? It's almost like a little bit of like code switching to like match the vibe of the person you're talking to. So we literally had like rehearsals, conversation, like practicing conversation. Like, what if a girl is like really standoffish and like she like doesn't want to talk that much? Like, how do you get her to relax and feel comfortable and open up and all this stuff? What if a girl, you can tell you and the girl like obviously not vibing? Like, what do you do in that moment to like save face and try to make sure that you end on a good note? So that was like, oh, like this, they're not fucking around. Like, it was some crazy shit. The fact that we were like practicing talking, like having fake conversations to prep for this. Yeah, it was a lot. And then like looks was a big part of it. We all had to like dress similar, like in similar kind of like color scheme stuff, wear our letters, and like hair and makeup had to be done, all this stuff. And it was just a lot. So then, as if that's not enough, like you go through that whole weekend, and then like after the fact, you like make notes about the girls that you meet and like if they're a right fit, or like you put stars, next to girls that like really like, oh my gosh, I vibed with this girl so much, like I want to like vote for her, kind of thing. And then it's like the whole weekend is like all the sororities on campus are doing this. So they're all voting to get like certain girls and stuff like that. And then it's just like this long ass process of trying to debate and, put formal put formal bids out to girls and hoping that they also choose you. Because then after going through fall recruitment from the outside perspective, you then vote on your top like 3 houses or something like that, and then pray that they are also choosing you in return. And it's like, it's so confusing and so stressful, and like for no goddamn reason. You know what I mean? So insane. You're up really late, and this is kind of for me where it started to unravel. So to preface, that semester, fall semester, my sophomore year, my second year, I had an 8 a.m. on Mondays. Okay. Love that. Everybody loves an 8 a.m., but on a Monday, yeah. So I had an 8 a.m. on Mondays. We had recruitment like all weekend, all Saturday, all Sunday. And then Sunday night, it was like, okay, we're staying up till the ass crack of dawn to vote and complete voting and stuff because there's a deadline. Like you have to get it done by a certain time. Okay, so I was sleep deprived. I was exhausted. I was just like, it had been a long weekend. And we were literally on campus, like in a random classroom that we had like reserved to do all this voting. Like literally the entire chapter is there. And to preface this, if you like miss certain events, you get fined. If you don't have like a legitimate excuse for missing events and missing like important meetings and things like that, like they will fine you money. Or you like get infractions and then you're like on a probationary thing and you have to like do all this extra stuff to make up for it as a part of the chapter. So basically, obviously fall recruitment's a big deal, like no shit. But like we were literally on campus and it was like 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. Like it was really, really late. And I was like, I'm exhausted. I've had a long week because it's not just like that weekend, like Saturday, Sunday that you're prepping. It's like the entire week prior. I'm working on campus, then I'm going to class, then I'm like going to meetings and we're doing all this practice and prep for it. Okay. It's a long week, a long process. And I could tell that night that like my body was at its brink. I was just so exhausted and I needed some rest before I had an 8 a.m. class that I had to be like up and alert for and be able to function in so I could keep my 4.0 grades up. You feel me? Okay. Remember that. Should call me 4.0. So it was a long ass night. There's a lot of arguing going on. There's a lot of like chaos. You feel me? It is utter chaos because it's like, okay, no, I vouch for this girl. Like I want this girl. No, like, no, that girl was weird. Da, da, da. And it's like fucking weird. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so crazy how serious it gets. It's unreal how serious it gets. So I was like crashing out. I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And to preface this, that entire fall semester, I had been having a lot of conflicts because I had gigs, I had recording sessions and all this stuff. So I was really struggling to meet my quota for like events. At the end of the day, clearly this was not a good fit for me being part of a sorority because my schedule was maxed out. I was working part-time on campus, like a minimum of like 20 hours a week. I had a full like 15, 16 unit workload of classes. I was still in like juries. I still had to do juries for like the music department. So I had to like prep and learn material for like an exam at the end of the semester. I was gigging and doing stuff like on my own. And then on top of it, like having to meet all these requirements for the sorority. It was too much and I couldn't handle it. Like I literally physically could not handle it. My body was like, no. And at one point I just remember being like, I need to get the fuck out of here. I can't do this anymore. So I had already been dealing with kind of like issues with the chapter advisor because of not going to certain events and not like participating as much because I had other priorities. Like admittedly, I loved it. And there were moments where like I really enjoyed being involved and like I had a lot of fun and I made some friends, but I was like, I know where my priorities stand and it's not with this shit. So I like got up and I was like, I need to leave. Like I have an 8 a.m. I'm exhausted. I need to go to sleep so I can keep my grades up. And she like literally looked me dead in the eye and she was like, if you leave, like we're going to fine you. I was like, oh, okay. Then like, bye. I'm going to leave and you're never going to see me again. Like I quit. Like I'm out of here. Like I can't do this anymore. So that was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. There were like other instances where like I had to, not participate. And it just got to a point where it was like, oh, okay, I don't think I can manage this like with my schedule that I have. And I wasn't about to like cancel on gigs and cancel on sessions and not do like my actual like career that I'm pursuing in order to prioritize this. Like that was not about to happen. So, I mean, it was an amicable thing. Like we did have a long formal discussion. I talked with a lot of like elders in the chapter and a lot of other sisters about it. And I was just like, I just don't think this like makes sense. Like I'm like already trying to work on my career and like this is getting in the way. So like I love y'all, but like I can't do this anymore. So that's basically what happened. Like I decided to leave because it just didn't make sense with my schedule. So all that to say, it's a lot of fun. It's a little bit more serious probably than you expect. As far as like the formalities of everything, having to learn things, having to like abide by all these rules. It's not just all like fun and like rainbows and parties and like boys and like, it's not just that for sure. There is an opportunity for you to make some lifelong friends. I still talk to some of the girls from that chapter. I ended up being roommates and becoming like best friends with one girl, that I'm still really best friends with to this day. And so I look at the situation overall with like so much gratitude, because if I had not joined, I would not have this lifelong friend, and I would not have like these other friends that like really we shared so many fun memories with. So like I can't complain about that. But it's like you're spending all this money, and if you're not, if it's getting in the way of if it's getting in your way of like some of your other priorities or things that are important to you in life, and it's just not adding up, like obviously like you got to do what you got to do. So that's what ended up happening. And I don't know, I look back at this situation with fun and fond memories. There's a lot of it that I can just laugh about now. It's just such an interesting chapter of my life. And there were so many interesting and hilarious and just like unbelievable experiences that I had. And it's just like a small sliver of like my experience at CSUN. And to me, it's just like laughable now. I can look back on it and like laugh at it and just be like, oh my God, what was I doing? Like, why did but I wouldn't regret it for a second. I mean, I can't like claim the letters now. I can't like say that I'm a alum or anything because I fucking gave up. I left. You feel me? But I had fun overall. I just definitely think it's like not for everybody. Definitely not for everybody. But, I can see that there are some benefits out of it. You network like crazy. And if you are a social person and you're trying to like climb that social ladder and network and make friends and build a large network of, similarly or like-minded people, then it's maybe a great opportunity for you and like worth the investment. But it just like depends. Like there were no musicians in my chapter, and like there were very, 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 very few musicians like at all in Greek life. So to me, I was like, oh, well, I want to network with musicians. And so it just didn't really make sense. Like I was putting my eggs in the wrong basket, if you feel me. So I don't know. It was very interesting. There's probably a lot of things that I'm like forgetting to like include in this. And I could probably rant a whole other like hour about this and just gab about like random things that we did and like random experiences and funny stories. But I also don't want to like dox anybody and like go there. But all in all, it's very interesting. Just, if you're considering Greek life now, you maybe have a better idea of like what you're getting into. Sororities are a little bit more intense and more demanding than like fraternities are, for sure. Fraternities, from my perspective, when I was active, were not and are not like as intense with like rules and stuff. It's like definitely not as like formal. So that's something to take into consideration. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to wrap up the episode, y'all. I wanted to gap about this for so long, and I just think it's such a funny chapter of my life to reflect on and share with y'all. So I hope that you learned something and gained maybe a different perspective on Greek life from this video. And maybe if you're considering it, it gives you a better perspective to make that decision off of. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope y'all have a wonderful week and a fun weekend. Be safe, and I'll see you next week. Bye.